What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Federico Perez and Ralph Hanna. And guys, here we are. The World Cup is officially over. Certainly something that I think not a lot of people want to admit because it was a magical month and a half for all football fans. Obviously, for us, for Paraguay, it was really great seeing what the team was able to do and obviously the kind of the reaction. And certainly I think when you go into the perspective of all the other teams that participated, I think Paraguay left a from a football perspective and a performance perspective a good impression. From the way that we play, that's a whole different story, but that's up for a debate. But at least for 4 years we can say our reputation to the world has been a good one. And now we have to focus on the local league, because the Paraguayan league is back. The Clausura starts officially today at the time of recording. We'll get to see what happens there in our beautiful Primera División over there in Paraguay, and to see who is able to win this title, because certainly, the División de Honor, as we say there, is always a hard one to win. Certainly a tournament that is always difficult. And, Olimpia, who won their 48 title, winning the Apertura last time around, we have to see if if that team is able to go back and try to repeat it, or if someone else can do it, if it's going to be Cedro, if it's going to be Libertad, if it's going to be Nacional, Guarani, or any other one of those teams. That's the beauty of this tournament, this Copa de Primera, as we say over there in Paraguay. And I guess I'll go to Fede first, because Fede, you've been keeping yourself busy. I don't even know if you've been able to realize that the league is back as well, because you've been just so busy doing Sudamericana, doing lower leagues, obviously keeping an eye on what's going on in our world of Paraguay, but in our Paraguayan football world. But hey, at least it's good to have some sort of football back after the month and a half of World Cup that we had to watch here in North America.
Yeah, hi Rob. How are you? Roberto, hi Rob. Hi everyone listening to Guarani Vision. Like always, yeah, I've been just keeping busy. Thankfully, I've been doing a lot of games. The World Cup is behind us now, but we're still on top of a lot of things that still need to happen, right? And we're talking about transfers and even the Alfaro thing, just waiting to see if he's gonna stay, if he's gonna. I think nobody's waiting for him to say, no, no, I'm out of here and we gotta go and look for another coach. I don't think anybody right now is thinking of a plan B. So hopefully we get that news coming in the next couple of weeks. Also, we get good news from players like Orlando Hill, Matias Galarza. We're waiting for big moves from them. There's been rumors also about Julio Enciso moving to another team. I'm definitely looking forward to what could happen to a lot of that Paraguay squad that played the World Cup. Junior Alonso was probably one of the only names that signed for a new team, I believe, right? Going to Miguel Almiron's team. He's going to play for Atlanta United. I believe he already played this week.
Yes, he
So it's
did.
been a slow international market so far for our players. Still waiting for more news in that sense. But also, I mean, you go beyond this World Cup and you're thinking, okay, it's 2030 now, guys. I mean, we're gonna be there eventually. 2030 will arrive, and Paraguay should be ready or starting to get ready to host. For the moment, just one single World Cup game, but it's a huge event for a country like ours. So yeah, just keep it busy and a lot to still look forward to in the rest of the year. I would even say, we have major sporting events that will take place in Paraguay, like the World Rally Championship that we already had last year in August. Again, I think the biggest sporting event that Paraguay will host this year will be for the first time. They'll have the opportunity to have the World Skate Games also here in Paraguay. So that's going to be huge in October. Looking forward to that, because just like I'm saying, you have 2030, the World Cup, and you have all these sporting events also going on. But for football fans, I mean, just get it underway. Just get this clausura going, because it's been so long, and especially for the players. I mean, they had an off season to work, and I'm looking forward to see if Olympia can do just what you said, a back-to-back title. If they're gonna be with their heads just like Cerro Porteño in Libertadores, and Olimpia with their heads in Sudamericana, are we gonna have a couple of surprises? Is Nacional gonna be able to pull through like they didn't do in the Apertura? Is Guarani and Libertad that need to have a good tournament? Are they gonna be the teams that to pick it up, or are we gonna have just maybe an underdog coming pulling through? I mean, I don't know. I look at teams that have really small budgets but are doing really well lately, and I admire what they're doing. I'm talking about Ameliano. I'm talking about Trinidense. teams that I really respect lately in the first division, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they built up. Recoleta is another one, just to talk about teams that have been building up. And then you have the teams that are going to struggle, the teams that are going to fight to not leave the first division, the teams that are going to fight for relegation. So this second semester has it all, guys. So I'm really looking forward to this clausura. We have so much to talk about today.
We absolutely do. And yeah, Ralph, certainly, it's the World Cup. Obviously, it obviously does not end after what we saw in Philadelphia, and is now preparation for 2030 because, of course, like Fede said, we are one of the co-hosts. We are automatically qualified alongside five other countries, two in South America with Argentina and Uruguay, and Spain, Morocco, and Portugal in Europe and Africa. So, that sort of preparation, we have to wait and see how Paraguay are going to prepare because obviously they don't have to play, or at least they don't have to play to qualify. We have to wait and see what the process is. Even I had Alejandro Dominguez actually saying this week that the World Cup might be increased to 64 teams. So we already had 48 this summer and 32 4 years ago. Now we're going to 64, which is double the size of Qatar. So who knows what that's going to mean in terms of teams that are qualified. We have to also wait and see if Paraguay is able to just host one, if they're just going to host one game or multiple games, because we've also seen some I don't want to say dubious, but definitely the way it's admirable sort of projections of what the stadium will look like, the Estadio Osvaldo Dominguez Dib, the home of Olympia, what it will look like for 2030. There is the ambition, but there is still the doubt of like if it will be ready in time. But at least from a football perspective, at least Paraguay now are starting to prepare for 2030. And, obviously there's a Copa America that we hope to see happening in 2028. We'll have to wait and see if it's going to be here or in somewhere else. But yeah, the preparation does not end after what we saw in Philadelphia against France. Now we have to go and focus for 2030. And of course, it also starts with our local league that begins today.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and just touching on the World Cup and how it affects the local league, of course, is Olympia will be playing again without a stadium, and they're essentially projected to play without a stadium until 2029. So when did they knock it down? Like 2024, end of 24. So it's gonna be like four seasons or four, years, or 8 short seasons of not playing at their stadium, which didn't affect them because they won the title. But if you look at the league table, it's really interesting. It did affect the other teams. So at the same time, Guarani and Luqueño don't have their stadiums. They actually were much lower down in the league than the teams that do still have their stadiums, especially Nacional. Nacional renovated their stadium in a small way, got it ready, and they play at the Arsenio Erico. So we should keep an eye on it because it can affect things with the league, right? Not having an actual like home base can be difficult. For Olympia, it's a bit easier that they go to the national team stadium. They're going to play Libertad there this weekend, right? Whereas some of the smaller teams, they have to like choose different stadiums for different games, so they end up playing in lots of different locations. Guarani is I think going out to Capiatá, right, for their first home game of the year. And so that really affects teams when you have to be moving around a lot and you don't have that kind of base. So this is something that is going to persist definitely for the rest of the year for most of the sides, and for Olympia, it will be a long time. And you said, yeah, you said something about Alejandro Dominguez that it might be a 64. He said it will be. That was a strange thing, right? He just said it will be, and he talked about three hosts, but not the three actual hosts in his like social media. He just didn't even mention Spain, Morocco, and Portugal, which was quite funny. He just mentioned the South American teams, which obviously is what he's trying to push. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, this is something that will, I think, start to gain much more traction, especially the Olympia Stadium, when people might start to get nervous, right? About like when is the building actually going to happen? Because until now, it's been demolished, but it hasn't been built on. And partly it's because they have to buy land and they're trying to find the land to buy and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot going on in the background. And from someone that used to live in Miami and saw how long it took into Miami to get their stadium, it's not easy, right? When you're looking for this prime real estate in a big city, it's not easy to get everything ready and construct. So we'll keep an eye on that for sure.
We absolutely will, but I guess we'll focus on what we'll see on the pitch in the stadiums that are actually built and not demolished. And then obviously that is with the Clausura starting today. We'll obviously have the matches. We have two matches today to start it off. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see how all these teams really start out. But the opening weekend has this. We have Dos de Mayo taking on Rubio Nu. Then we have Cerro Porteño taking on Trinidense tomorrow, Saturday. We have Recoleta taking on Sportivo San Lorenzo. Sportivo Ameliano taking on Nacional. And then on Sunday, a big one. Two big games, actually, I would say. Olimpia taking on Libertad and Guarani taking on Luqueño. I mean, certainly, Ralph, I'll go to you first on this one. I mean, let's go and talk about the champions real quick. The defending champions, Olimpia. They're a team that obviously has more pressure than anyone, of course, because obviously not only are they competing for the league itself, but also, they're in the Sudamericana. They have to play the winner of a playoff. We have to wait and see who it's going to be because Independiente and Vasco da Gama are still tied between that after the first leg. So we'll see who they wait for. But it comes into a point, them and Cerro Porteño, of course, and of course, Recoleta, that they have to fight two competitions on its own during the start. So you have to wait and see how they can prioritize. But I think the big one from Olympia, from a transfer perspective, you know, we saw the likes of Ryan Romero coming in, Javier Dominguez, as Arminio, and so on. But the big one is Tim Payne. Tim Payne coming in after a really a popularity sort of signing, I would say, because of the popularity that he got before the World Cup and during the World Cup. But this is a weird one. This is again, I don't think we didn't really talk about it as much because obviously we're too focused on the World Cup. But Olympia signing Tim Payne, I think that's the player that everyone is really looking forward to because this is firstly it's a New Zealand player coming to our league. You don't see a lot of non-South American players coming to Paraguay as a whole, let alone someone from Oceania. So I think that's the big one. But I think they are certainly still a team that kept most of the base. I mean, they did sell some players, like they did sell Facundo Isran, who went to the Middle East. Thiago Caballero actually is staying put. Everyone thought that he was going to join Banfield, but at the moment he is staying. But Adrian Alcaraz left. Hugo Quintana left as well. He's in Ecuador. So they made some moves from a transfer perspective, but also some players have also left as well. So I'm curious to see what you think of Olympia and how well they're prepared to defend the title.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, they've had this great inter-season break, right? They're calling it because they don't call it preseason, they say inter-season because they had to finish the World Cup, finish the Apertura early, sorry, for the World Cup. Then they've had a much longer time than they usually do at this time of year. And Olympia, that's been great for them because they didn't have many players go to the World Cup. As you've just mentioned, they kind of kept the base mostly. I mean, I think losing Quintana and Alcaraz is definitely going to affect them a bit in terms of attacking options. But at the same time, it's not like the whole team disappeared. So Vitamina Sanchez has this like group. He's just taken them to Brazil, right, where they played Flamengo in a friendly. I mean, they've had some, for me, pretty good preparation that they wouldn't usually get at this time of year. So in that respect, they're coming into this, I think, on in a very strong position to be favorites for the league again. Then you mentioned some of the signings. I mean, I think the Tim Payne signing is fascinating to me because one, they signed him in the position where they're probably strongest, if we're honest. Raul Cáceres was great in the Apertura and Payne's like a similar age, so I don't know what they're gonna do there. Maybe it's a rotation thing. But then they still have the issue because you mentioned they also signed Brian Romero, so that's another foreign player, and they've let some go, like Aníbal Chala, I think, has returned to Ecuador. But they still have seven, I think. I think they have seven foreigners in the squad, right? And they only have four spaces per game. So every time you want to play Tim Payne over Raul Cáceres, which is the right back spot, you're gonna miss out on another foreign player there, which is the big issue Cerro had, right, during the Apertura. Cerro had some great players, but they couldn't put them all together in the league matches because they didn't have enough spots for foreign players. So I think I'm really interested to see how they decide to use it because it's not just playing Tim Payne over Raul Cáceres, it's also the like knock-on effect with the foreign players. What we might see, what I'm maybe expecting is a lot of rotation between now and Copa Sudamericana. And so you might have almost your Clausura team and your Sudamericana team, as they try and manage the players for those games. And also just quickly on this first match, fascinating, right? That Libertad is now being managed by Nelson Haido Valdez, huge 2010 World Cup legend, yet another one to pass through Libertad. Imagine as either players or coaches, they've had so many. His assistant, of course, is Ram Vera, who who was also in the 2010 World Cup squad. And this is his first real, challenge as a manager. He was Werder Bremen 2's assistant coach. And really, that's like a youth team playing almost a regional league in Germany. Is just the level now is obviously going to be much higher. And so it's really interesting to see one, how he manages, in his first big job. But also, I'm really interested to see what kind of style is Nelson Valde is going to try and set up his team as playing. Because I didn't, I'm being honest, I did not watch Werder Bremen, reserves. I'm not sure. But he was a player that was known for being really hard in his play, real tough. He must have loved the France game and the Germany game, even though his wife is from Germany. I think he would have enjoyed that. But then at the same time, he's been coached. He's gone all around the world, and he's been coached in some teams where they play some pretty free-flowing football. So I'll be really interested to see like what is his coaching philosophy, and we get some of that on Sunday. But yeah, but just finishing off on Olympia, I think they're in a very good position going into the Clausura because of this long interseason break we've had, which we've never seen before, and the fact that none of their goalkeeper went to the World Cup, but none of the outfield players went to the World Cup, so they've had a lot of time to be working together.
What a way to start the year, right? Or this tournament in particular, the Clausura, the year for Nelson Aedo, because this is his first opportunity under Libertad and playing and managing this team and playing against the last champion, Olimpia, that I believe have more than they did in the first semester, guys. I look at the squad and I think, they did a couple of strategic moves. I look at the players that left, and just a couple of were important maybe in the base. I mean, I'm talking about Adrian Alcaraz, who was the center forward, Hugo Quintana, who chipped in a lot. I mean, he contributed with many important goals, with a lot of he played a lot. I mean, he had a lot of minutes during the first semester. So happy for him to move on. But maybe Olympia might miss him. I don't know if they signed enough midfielders. I don't know if they have enough in that end to take it up to see if they can play even better than they did during the first semester. Because I do think they're gonna have to elevate their current form to see if they can have a good run in Sudamericana, because I do think the priority is there. If you look at the signings, even, I mean, Tim Payne and especially Brian Romero. I mean, Brian Romero is a guy that has experience, and you're gonna try to get that off of him. We're gonna see if he can be the scorer killer that this team now needs without Adrian Alcaraz. And that's what I'm kind of worried about, because Brian hasn't had those numbers yet, or lately especially. So I want to see if he can come back to his best version. That's one of the signings that I'm looking forward to. But Tim Payne, guys, I mean, this is a name that really blew up during the World Cup. I don't even know if he's that popular in his country as he is now in social media after everything that happened, but it's definitely a strategic signing from Olympia, right? I mean, they're thinking about, hey, we might even sell jerseys in New Zealand now. We might even catch people's attention now in the other side of the world, because we have their national team player, and he might contribute. Just like Ralph said, I mean, they already have a starter there, and they have a player that doesn't even, I mean, he doesn't even get a cold. I mean, he's always there. He wants to be in every single game, which is Raul Cáceres. So it's not going to be easy for Tim Payne to get minutes, but Olympia is going to have a lot of competition in this second semester. And hopefully Tim Payne is one of those guys that comes to Paraguay, falls in love with the country, and wants to stay many, many years. I don't know if that's going to be the reality, because I want to see just how much he really plays in these first 6 months. If you come to a country like this and you're not playing and everybody's talking about you and you're not performing, you're not getting opportunities, you might want to leave quickly, right? So hopefully Tim Payne fits in right away. He learns a couple of Guarani words, because he probably is really lost right now. He's probably one of the, we have a new player on the block, and you know how that works out in the locker room. But I believe the coach speaks English, so he might be able to get along really well with Tim Payne, because he played in Europe for a long time. But yeah, I mean, for Tim Payne, it's moving the whole family. I mean, it's not just coming to Paraguay and play football. It's get accustomed to the weather, the whole thing. I mean, playing in the other side of the world and playing in Paraguay must be very different. So he's going to have to get accustomed to the whole thing really quickly, Roberto. I don't know what you guys think about it, but my reaction when I saw that news coming in, Olympia signing Tim Payne, I immediately said, what?
And from what I've seen in the World Cup, and I'm sure all you guys did, he did not impress me that much either. I don't know what you guys thought, but he just did not look like someone who's gonna wow me. Yes, I understand it is the World Cup, and maybe the Paraguayan league is a different beast, but going from the New Zealand league to Paraguay is still a high jump, Ralph.
Yeah, it's a big jump. I mean, we've seen one go from Paraguay to the A League, which was Fernando Romero, right? He randomly went to Melbourne for I think 6 months or something. But yeah, I don't think we. It's just it's like Fede said, it's a strange signing because of the from a footballing perspective because of the age, right, and the fact you take up the foreign spot, and then to Fede's point, it's more about there's a possibility, I think, to get some popularity, some traction, maybe some sales, go into new markets
A couple of
for
new brands.
yeah, right, exactly. Bring on the brands, which ties all the way back to the stadium. Olympia, at their recent meeting, they need about $35 million to help with the stadium. That's not the Commonwealth money. That's not the money they already have in the trust fund. It's trying to find those extra sponsors and commercial opportunities. So there, a lot of it comes back to this. But I mean, what I saw from Tim Payne is he was very attacking, right, for a New Zealand team that they didn't really play defensively, despite not being a team that were very strong in terms of expecting to win games. But he would get forward quite a lot. I think got an assist in the World Cup, and so it's not that dissimilar to Cáceres, and it's not like that wouldn't work out for Olympia in the local league, right? They're going to be going forward. They're going to be taking on teams. We we would expect that. So in that sense, it might fit in. But yeah, I didn't see anything that said like, oh wow, Olympia's, they've made this really smart signing that nobody expected of this hidden talent kind of thing. It's more like, yeah, it's very much like someone that's going to end up just competing with Raul Cáceres for that starting spot and might get it or might not, because it's not like they're an obvious candidate to be the best right back in the Paraguayan league. I don't think we're going to see that.
I'm curious to see how it's gonna go. So I think that's gonna be one of the storylines to get. And of course, they are defending champions, so they already have a target on their back anyway. And a team that also are looking to bounce back is Cerro Porteño, the team that starts off the big team that starts off this semester. Certainly they had to make a lot of moves, Fede. They made a lot of moves in terms of players leaving. A lot of them. Wilder Vieira, Luisa Maria, Christian Paredes, just to name a few. Alexis Martinez Arias, who left as well, Sonora, so on. And they get players like Agustin Almendra, they get Alexis Cañete, they get Ivan Ramirez, they get Angel Martinez, the goalkeeper from Los de Mayo. So, this is after what we saw from the beginning of the clausura to the beginning of the apertura, for this sake of Cedro's case, for to see what Ariel Olana is gonna do. He made some business in this case.
Yeah, and they're still bringing in players in, right? I mean, they're still making signings even this week. I mean, I'm still surprised that they're still bringing in players that probably Ariel Holland is thinking to himself, I need still more players. Some didn't have the best physical work and are a bit banged up for these first couple of games. It's crazy to hear, right? That after a couple of, I mean, pretty much a whole month without playing a single game, you're not ready for the first game of the season. I mean, to me, that's even hilarious. I mean, I don't get how that happens. I don't get how you worked so hard to get ready for the first game, and then on the first game you're not ready for it. But I don't know. These sometimes players, they're banked up. They have too much experience. They have too many years on top of them, and the body just can't take it. I'm talking about Iturbe, another one. You can never rely on him. You can never think that he's gonna be the star player on this team because he's never ready for it. I mean, he can play 2, 3 games and then he's out again because he's banged up. And the same thing about Cecilio Dominguez. And people might be tired of me talking about these players over and over again, but they are definitely the players to keep an eye on because they can make the difference. But lately, Cerro has made a couple of signings that have done well. I thought Pablo Begetti was finally getting to be himself in this team in those last important games that they played in Libertadores, and he really pulled through. So he's evolved into that player that they wanted him to be. And then they have signings like Derlis Rodriguez, who's coming back from Guarani. I mean, that's a weird one for me. But other names really catch my attention. I want to see Ariel Gamarra, who's coming from Argentina. He has ties with Paraguay. His family is Paraguayan, so he's gonna come in with that Argentinian rhythm. Hopefully, he can fit in right in that midfield, which is gonna be totally new, I believe, with maybe even a couple of new names that are still gonna try to fight to get in there. Uh, and the defense is also going to have a couple of new names. I believe they brought another right back who is Ivan Ramirez. They brought him from Libertad. I don't know if he's already going to start, but if you bring in a player like him, it's because you want to attack, right? You want to be that team that has the ball and has the opportunities to score and score. I mean, that's, I believe, what Ariel Holland's project or plan is with this team moving forward. He wants to have that big team mentality. But I mean, during the offseason for me, guys, I mean, the big news from Cerro was they lost their goalkeeper, and he was one of their best players these last couple of years. I mean, they lost a really important player, and I don't know if they got the same in the market. I don't know if this Manuel Rofo and what they brought in is enough. You talked about the goalkeeper from Dos de Mayo. He's still very young. I don't think he's gonna be fighting for a starting role. Are they gonna have to rely again on Gatito Fernandez, who didn't play a single game during the World Cup because he stayed? I mean, just when you thought, okay, Gatito's gonna leave now, they brought in two new goalkeepers. There's a young goalkeeper also waiting for his opportunity. Gatito, you got to go. No, no, he's still here, guys. I mean, so he's definitely going to fight for an opportunity. But as of right now, we got to talk about Manuel Rofo and see how he does these first couple of games because Alexis Aria was already part of this team and he was a very important piece. And you're heading into playing Palmeiras. You're not just going to play any team. You're going to play one of the best teams in South America. So for me, it is kind of weird. These many signings, a lot of players that left. I want to see if Holland really knows what he's doing and if we're going to see what we think that we should see from this team, right? I mean, his style, we want to see a team that can play aggressive football, that can play attacking. And it hasn't just been about Ariel Holland coming in. Alongside, you see Hernan Diaz, a bunch of professionals that have been, I don't know, actually some sort of tied to that Argentinian giant River Plate because you look at is it really pure coincidence? I don't think so. I mean, that tie goes back to 2012 when they were managing that team in second division and they were trying to bring it back, and Holland was part of that team. So, yeah, he did things in Independiente, he did things in other countries also, but to bring in all those people from River that he knows very well, I mean, this is a project, guys. This is not just for 1, 2 games. I mean, they're thinking of the long run. They're thinking about building a big team, a big project, and I don't know if we're gonna see that right away, Ralph. I have my doubts about this Cerro Porteño and so many signs when you got to play Libertadores, when you have to play against Palmeiras, and you already beat them. So people are expecting you to beat them again.
Yeah, Holland has all the pressure on himself now, right? Because he could have always said during the Apertura, well, it's not really my team. This is, I'm taking over. I'm just working with what I've got. Now he's had this huge clear out of players that we've just been mentioning, all of these guys leaving, I mean, or going back on loan. And totally, it's the midfield that's totally changed, right? Like, I think Christian Paredes is gone. Fabricio Peralta, I think, was injured anyway, but he goes back to Cruzeiro because he was only on loan. I mean, the whole midfield is like, boom, I'm getting rid of it. And he comes in with somebody like Agustin Almendra, I thought was really interesting because he's one of those players that really, he was really good when he came through at Boca. I remember him. But he's always had these issues, right? Like off the field and that kind of thing. And so that is a gamble. You've got a player that at 26 is probably technically and quality is there, right? But you're going to throw him in with Cecilio Dominguez, with all of these, all of this locker room where I don't know if they've really ever been much of a team. They've had this issue, right? This whole time with players looking over different positions, players always getting injured. They've never really had this unity. So I think there's big gambles there. The goalkeeper situation was probably not in his hands, from what I understand. Martin Arias wasn't going to stay at Cerro with the offers he had compared to what he got at Nacional of Uruguay, and off he goes. And so then you have to you're kind of forced to make a change. And it sounds like Rofo is going to be his guy, at least for the start of the season. But let's see if if Gatito doesn't get another chance, right? Because if things don't go well early on, you've always got the experience of Gatito. But what we're really going to see with this Cerro team, yeah, is like a total renovation. And the big thing is now Olan can't complain about the league in terms of I only have the four foreigners. That was like a huge thing. It was a big issue in the first half of the season that they couldn't play all the players they wanted, right? Because they just hadn't structured the squad correctly. And so now he's had that opportunity for some players to go, for some to come in, and now he can start to build this team how he wants. One player we haven't mentioned, which I think is someone who you're probably going to see get many more minutes, is Cesar Bobadilla. He came through halfway through the season. The youngster from Paraguay from the youth ranks, and by the end of the season, he was getting a lots more minutes in that midfield. So I think that's a player that you might see take on more responsibility, but yeah, let's see how it goes. I mean, first game is tricky because Trinidense always seem to do well against Cerro. Historically, I think they've won in La Hoya a couple of times now. So it's he's straight into it. And to Fede's point, it sounds like it's a project, but how long can the project be allowed to happen? As we've seen so many times in Paraguay, right? They can get cut short because there's so much immediate pressure on getting results. And of course, somebody needs to win this Clausura that isn't Olympia, so Cerro needs to try and step up and do that in their case because they need to guarantee their place next year in Libertadores.
Do they
Fede.
have enough, Roberto? I wanted to ask you, do they have enough now? Do you believe they have enough? Are you going to miss any of the players that left?
Um, no, no, I won't actually. And also, I still don't think they have enough. I still think there are still some issues with this team that do need to be fixed. I mean, yeah, obviously they've enjoyed a good first half of the year with what they did with Libertadores, but I think they needed to do better from a domestic standpoint as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how they compete on both fronts because Palmeiras is a tough one. They have what energy will they put in? Do they have to prioritize that? Given that they already given their number, even if it was with, a different team-ish. But, we got to see what it's like for Meheti, players like that to really step it up. This is a big tournament for both sides. For Cerro Porteño's sake, for their big players to step it up. Him, Iturbe, Cecilio Dominguez, they really need to step it up because they want to win the Clausura, which is obviously very important. And also the one Libertadores, they're going to have to step it up big time. So, I think to looking at it and going in full circle about teams that could compete. I mean, Libertad are still there. We have to, again, it's the whole Nelson Valdez sort of question mark. How good is he? Can he manage a team with big personalities on there? And as well, can Nacional surprise as well? We've seen what they can do sometimes. Um, but I think if you're pressing me for a champion right now, I guess to sort of close out this sort of segment, I think it's still Olympia. I think Olympia could still do it. I think they're going to repeat it as champions. I think they still have the best team in the league as it is. I think winning it was no coincidence as itself, and the fact that it's still mostly some of the same players and maybe a bit more strengthened as well, even if they lose it, if they lost some players. But I still think they're the best team in the league. So I think they're going to go back to back. So that's my personal prediction. Fede, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm hoping for a surprise, guys. I'm hoping for Olympia and Cerro to be kind of distracted. Hopefully, they do have that long journey, right? In their competitions, I don't want them to get eliminated quickly, and they're gonna go up against teams that they've already faced, so they're not gonna go up against anything totally new for them. So I'm hoping for them to have a good run in Sudamericana Libertadores. Paraguay kind of needs that also. We haven't had that these last couple of years. So my focus is going to be in the other teams. I want to see Libertad. I want to see Guarani, that they brought one of the youngest coaches available out there, a coach that already did it with Libertad. He's been waiting for his chance. I'm talking about Ariel Galeano, and I'm really looking forward to what they're gonna do. They made a whole bunch of late signings. I don't know how long it's gonna take them to really get it together. But I look at other teams, and Nacional was really close with Bernal. He's been really close before with Guarani also. They still have Roque Santa Cruz. They didn't make that many signings. Jordan Santa Cruz, Angel Lucena, and Rodrigo Melgarejo, I think, are the other ones that they brought in. But I'm still looking forward to the way that they play. They are one of the better teams in the way that they play and what they try to do out there. And Other teams that could surprise. Emiliano played really well under Nani also in the first semester. Hopefully they can step it up and hopefully they make the right signings because those are teams just like Dos de Mayo, Rubio Ñu. They lost a whole bunch of players, so you never know what you're gonna see in these first couple of games. Dos de Mayo is another one. I mean, they have a really good roster and I want to see just what they're made out of. But yeah, just to your point, I mean, the teams that are going to fight for the title is going to be Olimpia, Cerro, and maybe a third team, but it shouldn't get out of those teams. If I got to pick right now, I'm definitely going to back because Olimpia pretty much maintained their base of players. They got Derlis Gonzalez back, guys. I mean, they even got a player back that was injured that wasn't available, and that could be an interesting one if he starts playing. I mean, I think they brought the right players in and they have more than enough. And now Vitamina Sanchez knows what Paraguayan football is about. He knows what the league, what you need in this league, all the little details. So they might be able to do back-to-back titles. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think for me it's also between those sides, right? It's between Olimpia and Cerro as the teams that could really go the distance in the league, but they're also trying to go the distance in the cup. So that's part of the interesting thing. Libertad, because is Nelson Ido's coming in and it's his first job, they don't like you don't assume that we will be fighting at the top. They also relied a lot in that first semester on Lorenzo Melgarejo's goals and how long can he keep going? You know, he's much older now, and so you wonder like how can he keep delivering for the team? And so with Libertad, I don't see them as like an obvious third candidate where they have been historically. For Guarani, with Galliano, he's never really convinced in terms um, of managing it when it's difficult. He got the Libertad team and won everything in his first season, but he was like just inheriting the side basically from Garnero, I think it was, and just like continued on. So when he played, when he was younger and did River Plate and he did Dos de Mayo, he was okay at lifting those teams a bit, but not like taking them through to a new level. So really, it looks like Olimpia Cerro. If I had to go for a third team. Yeah, I don't think Libertad or Guarani, so I think I'd be more leaning towards Nacional that could continue to do something like Fede says they're more stable and bringing in someone like Lucena and Jordan Santa Cruz is like really interesting because that's actually two very experienced midfielders that if they're able to stay fit and just deliver, consistently, then it really raises the level of the team and the quality of the team. So Nacional could be an outside shout, but I really think it's between Cerro and Olimpia. And at the moment, it is looking like Olimpia because, as we just said, like Olimpia is the stable team starting at the top because they're the champions, and Cerro's that team that's just done a whole shift, to try and get this project going and moving. And how quickly can you really turn it around? Remember, the league's only 22 games, so I think, yeah, I think I'd lean to Olimpia at the moment as the Clausura champion.
Crazy that we're in agreement on this. So we have to wait and see. And it's certainly going to be a fun clausura for everyone following. Glad to see that Paraguayan football is back and we get to cover it as we always do here on Guarani Vision as we close it out. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hanna, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.